Have you ever looked at your massive, leafy eggplant bush and wondered why it is only giving you 2 or 3 sad, tiny fruits? What if I told you that you are actually being too kind to your plants? Today, we are talking about the ultimate eggplant secret. If you cut your eggplant in just one specific spot, you will trigger an absolute explosion of growth. We are talking about up to 100 shiny, perfect eggplants pouring out of your garden all the way until autumn. It sounds crazy, right? Most people think that snipping branches off a healthy plant will ruin it, but this is the big lie of backyard gardening. In this video, I'm going to show you the exact hidden spot you need to prune. I promise you, once you learn this counterintuitive trick, you will never look at your vegetable garden the same way again. So, are you ready to take a brave step and snip your way to a record-breaking harvest? Let us dive in. Before we grab our garden shears, let us quickly understand who we are dealing with. Eggplants, or aubergines as some call them, are tropical perennials by nature. In their native hot climates, they can grow into massive, wild shrubs that live for years. But in our typical backyard gardens, we treat them as annuals. We only have a few warm months to get as much fruit out of them as possible. Left to their own devices, these plants revert to their wild habits. They want to grow as many leaves and branches as possible to capture sunlight, completely ignoring the fact that you actually want to eat their fruit. For centuries, smart farmers have known that you have to discipline the plant. You have to step in and forcefully redirect its energy. If you just plant an eggplant and walk away, you are letting the plant follow its wild instincts, which leads to a jungle of leaves and barely any food. We need to become the masters of our garden and guide the plant's energy exactly where we want it. Let us start by looking closely at the anatomy of your eggplant. When you first put it in the soil, it looks like a simple, single stem growing straight up toward the sun. But as it grows, the plant begins to develop side shoots. These are the small, leafy branches that sprout directly from the main stem, right in the little joints where the main leaves attach. Many beginner gardeners see these new shoots and get incredibly excited. They think, "Wow, my plant is growing so big and bushy." They assume that a bigger plant automatically means a much larger harvest. But here is the truth. Those side shoots are actually energy vampires. They are stealing vital nutrients, water and sunlight away from the main goal of the plant, which is producing high-quality fruit. If you let every single side shoot grow, your eggplant will become a massive, tangled bush of green leaves. You might get a few tiny, dull-looking eggplants, but you will never get that massive harvest of 100 shiny fruits. Understanding this basic plant structure is the absolute first step to mastering your garden. We have to learn to see the difference between productive growth and wasted energy. Once you can spot those sneaky side shoots, you are already halfway to a record-breaking autumn harvest. So, take a close look at your plants tomorrow morning and see if you can spot these little energy thieves hiding in the leaf joints. Now it is time to bust a massive gardening myth. The biggest mistake people make is believing that more foliage equals more fruit. It makes logical sense at first glance, right? More leaves mean more photosynthesis, which should mean more food for the plant to make big eggplants. But that is entirely wrong. Let me give you a bright example to make this crystal clear. Think of your eggplant like a factory with a limited budget. Every day, the roots pull up a specific amount of water and nutrients. That is the daily budget. If the factory has to maintain 50 different leafy branches, it has to spread that budget very thin. There is barely anything left over to build the actual product, which is the fruit. But if you shut down the useless departments of the factory by pruning the excess branches, all of that daily budget gets funneled directly to the fruit-producing assembly line. By removing leaves, you are actually creating larger, shinier, and more abundant vegetables. This is the secret that separates professional farmers from frustrated backyard hobbyists. You have to be cruel to be kind. When you finally accept that a smaller, well-managed plant will outperform a giant wild bush every single time, your gardening game will change forever. Do not be afraid to reduce the overall size of the foliage. Your harvest will thank you for it later. So, where exactly is this magic spot we need to cut? To find it, you need to look for the letter Y. As your eggplant grows taller on its single main stem, it will eventually split into two main branches. This split creates a very obvious Y shape on the plant. This fork in the road is the most critical landmark on your entire eggplant. Everything that happens above this Y is generally good, and everything that happens below this Y needs your immediate attention. The spot right where the stem splits is where the plant naturally wants to start its fruiting phase. If you look closely right at the center of that Y junction, you will usually see the very first flower bud forming. This Y acts as the dividing line between the foundation of the plant and the production zone of the plant. Finding this split is incredibly easy once you know to look for it. Just run your finger up the thick main stem from the soil line until you hit the point where it clearly divides into two strong, equal paths. Mark this spot in your mind. This is the command center of your plant. Every single pruning decision you make for the rest of the summer will be based on the location of this first major junction. It is the key to unlocking those 100 shiny fruits. Now we arrive at the most difficult part for any gardener, the emotional sacrifice. Remember that first little flower I mentioned, the one sitting right in the middle of the Y junction? I need you to pinch it off. Yes, you heard me correctly. You must destroy the very first flower your plant produces. I know this sounds absolutely crazy. You have been waiting weeks for a flower to appear, and now I am telling you to rip it off. But here is why this is completely necessary. If you leave that first flower, the young plant will immediately panic and throw all of its energy into turning that single flower into an eggplant. It will stop growing taller, it will stop developing a strong root system, and it will stunt its own growth just to push out one early fruit. By pinching off that first flower, you are sending a powerful hormonal signal back down the stem. You are telling the plant, "We are not ready yet, keep building the foundation." This forces the eggplant to grow a much thicker main trunk and stronger roots. It delays gratification for a couple of weeks, but the reward is astronomical. Instead of one early, mediocre eggplant, you are building a robust machine that will comfortably support dozens of heavy fruits later in the season. Be brave, pinch that first flower, and trust the process. Let us get back to the main pruning event. We have found the Y junction, and we have pinched the first flower. Now, look at the main stem below that Y junction. Do you see all those little leafy side shoots growing out of the leaf joints? Those are the suckers, and every single one of them needs to go. This is the here from our video title. You must prune away every side shoot that grows below the first Y split. These lower branches will never produce high-quality fruit. They are too close to the ground, they do not get enough sunlight, and they drain massive amounts of energy from the upper canopy. Imagine trying to run a marathon while wearing heavy weights on your ankles. That is what these lower suckers do to your plant. By stripping the bottom half of the main stem completely bare of these shoots, you are forcing all the water and nutrients to shoot straight up into the productive top half of the plant. It might look a little naked and funny at first, like a tiny palm tree, but this is exactly what you want. The energy highway is now completely clear. The plant no longer has to waste resources feeding useless branches that drag on the dirt. This single action is the primary trigger for that massive autumn harvest we are aiming for. When you are ready to make these cuts, the technique you use is incredibly important. Do not just grab the side shoots and rip them off with your bare hands. Tearing the branches can strip the skin right off the main stem, leaving an open, jagged wound. This is an open invitation for bacterial infections and diseases to enter the plant and destroy it from the inside out. Instead, you need a pair of clean, sharp pruning snips or bypass shears. Before you even touch the plant, wipe your blades with some rubbing alcohol. This prevents you from spreading diseases from one plant to another. When you make the cut, get your blades as close to the main stem as possible without actually biting into the main trunk. You want a clean, flush cut. Do not leave a long, ugly stump, because those stumps will just die, rot, and attract fungus. A clean cut heals incredibly fast. The plant will seal the wound within hours, creating a tough scar that keeps pests and diseases out. Think of it like a surgical procedure. You want it to be quick, precise, and completely sterile. By taking this extra minute to do it right, you ensure that your eggplant stays healthy enough to keep pumping out fruit for the next 3 to 4 months without any setbacks. Timing and weather play a huge role in successful pruning. You should never prune your eggplants when it is raining or when the leaves are wet with heavy morning dew. Water acts as a superhighway for fungal spores and bacteria. If you create an open wound on the plant while it is wet, disease can instantly travel into the stem. The absolute best time to prune is mid-morning on a dry, sunny day. At this time, the morning dew has completely evaporated, but the intense, burning heat of the afternoon has not yet arrived. The sunshine will actually help to dry out and quickly heal the cuts you just made. Furthermore, try not to do your heavy pruning during an extreme heat wave. If the temperature is over 90 degrees Fahrenheit, the plant is already heavily stressed just trying to survive. Chopping off parts of it will only add to that severe stress and can cause the plant to temporarily shut down. Wait for a mild, dry day to perform your surgery. By perfectly timing your pruning session with the weather, you are working with nature instead of fighting against it. The plant will recover in record time and immediately redirect its energy toward producing those beautiful, shiny eggplants you are waiting for. One of the most hidden benefits of removing all those lower side shoots is improved airflow. When you leave an eggplant unpruned, it becomes a dense, tangled thicket of leaves right at the soil level. The air cannot circulate through the bottom of the plant. This creates a dark, damp, and humid microclimate underneath the leaves. This is the exact environment where powdery mildew, blight, and dangerous fungal diseases thrive. By stripping the bottom of the stem bare, you are opening up the doors and letting the wind blow right through the base of the plant. Good airflow keeps the main trunk dry and makes it incredibly difficult for fungal spores to settle and germinate. Think of it like opening the windows in a stuffy room. It just clears everything out. Plus, when you water your garden, any splashing soil will hit the bare stem instead of splashing directly onto low-hanging leaves, which is how soil-borne diseases usually spread. This simple act of creating a gap between the soil and the first leaves acts as an invisible shield against disease. A healthy, disease-free plant is the only kind of plant that can survive long enough to give you a harvest of 100 fruits. Let us talk about why pruning makes your eggplants so unbelievably shiny and dark. The beautiful deep purple colour of an eggplant and that glossy shine is a direct result of sunlight hitting the skin of the fruit. If your plant is overcrowded with hundreds of unnecessary leaves and side shoots, the eggplants will grow completely hidden in deep shade. Fruits grown in the dark tend to be dull, pale, and sometimes even a little bit bitter. They simply do not develop those rich antioxidants that give them their vibrant colour. By pruning out the excess growth and keeping the plant structured, you are allowing dappled sunlight to penetrate the canopy and kiss the growing fruits. The sun activates the pigments in the skin, turning them into those dark, mirror-like beauties you see at premium farmers' markets. It is not just about making them look pretty. That deep colour is an indicator of exceptional flavour and peak nutrition. So, when you are cutting away those lower suckers, remember that you are not just managing the plant's energy, you are literally painting the fruit with sunlight. This is exactly how you achieve that picture-perfect harvest that will make all your gardening neighbours incredibly jealous. So, we have cleared the bottom, but what do we do with the top? After the Y junction, you want to maintain a strict framework. The best method for backyard gardeners is the 2 to 3 stem system. You allow the two main branches that form the Y to continue growing upward. If the plant is exceptionally strong, you can allow one more side shoot just above the Y to become a third main branch. And that is it. These 2 or 3 main leaders will be the only branches you allow to grow tall. Any new side shoots that try to form on these main leaders should also be pinched out. This creates a very organised, open structure. It looks a bit like a candelabra. By forcing the plant to focus strictly on these 2 or 3 main highways, the fruit production becomes highly concentrated. The flowers will bloom directly on these strong branches, and the eggplants will hang down beautifully without getting tangled. This organised structure also makes it incredibly easy for you to spot the ripe fruit and harvest it without getting scratched up by hidden thorns. Managing the top canopy is just as important as clearing the bottom stem, as it keeps the energy flowing in a perfectly straight line. Pruning is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing summer relationship with your plant. Eggplants are stubborn survivors. Even after you perfectly strip the lower stem, the plant will continuously try to push out new suckers in the exact same spots. You will walk out to your garden a week later, and suddenly, tiny new green shoots will be appearing along the bare trunk. You cannot ignore these. If you turn your back on them, they will grow into massive branches in a matter of days, stealing back all the energy you worked so hard to redirect. You need to make sucker checking a part of your weekly gardening routine. Every time you go out to water or weed, just run your eyes down the main stem of your eggplants. When you see a new little sucker starting to form, just gently rub it off with your thumb. When they are tiny, you do not even need tools. They snap off with a simple touch. By staying on top of this maintenance, you ensure that the energy highway remains clear all season long. It takes only 5 seconds per plant, but it is the absolute most crucial habit you must develop if you want to see a continuous waterfall of fruit all the way into the autumn months. Because we have removed the lower bushy growth and forced all the weight to the top of the plant, we have to talk about support. An unpruned eggplant supports itself by resting its messy branches on the ground, but your beautifully pruned 2 to 3 stem masterpiece is going to become top-heavy. When those branches are loaded with dozens of heavy, water-filled eggplants, a strong gust of wind can easily snap the main stem right in half, destroying your entire season. You absolutely must tie your plants to a sturdy support. A tall bamboo stake, a strong wooden post, or a heavy-duty tomato cage works perfectly. As the plant grows taller, gently tie the main branches to the support using soft garden twine or old strips of cotton fabric. Do not tie them too tightly. Leave a little loop of space so the stem can continue to grow thicker without being strangled. This support system acts as the skeleton for your plant. It bears the weight of the massive harvest, so the plant can focus entirely on pumping water and nutrients. Proper trellising, combined with smart pruning, is the ultimate professional combination for a truly unstoppable vegetable garden. Let us discuss how this pruning method completely changes the way you water your plants. When you remove a significant amount of leaves, the plant is no longer losing as much moisture through evaporation. This means a heavily pruned plant actually requires slightly less water than a giant unpruned bush. However, the water it does need must be delivered consistently to build those plump, juicy fruits. The biggest mistake you can make after pruning is letting the soil completely dry out and then flooding it with water. This sudden swing in moisture causes the skins of the shiny eggplants to split and crack, ruining the fruit. You want to maintain a sponge-like consistency in your soil. It should be evenly moist, but never soggy. The best way to achieve this is by laying down a thick layer of natural mulch, like straw or wood chips, around the base of your newly exposed stems. The mulch acts like a blanket, trapping the moisture in the ground and keeping the root zone nice and cool, even during the hottest days of summer. Consistent, even watering is the secret ingredient that turns a properly pruned flower into a heavy, flawless 1-pound eggplant. Pruning is essentially a controlled trauma, and your plant needs a good meal to recover. When you chop off branches, the eggplant expends energy to heal the wounds and push new growth upward. To support this burst of targeted energy, you need to provide the right kind of fuel. About a week after your first major pruning session, give your eggplants a dose of liquid organic fertilizer. You want something high in phosphorus and potassium, like a good quality fish emulsion or a bone meal tea. These specific nutrients are the building blocks for massive root development and aggressive flowering. Try to avoid fertilizers that are extremely high in nitrogen at this stage. Nitrogen encourages the plant to grow more green leaves, which is the exact opposite of what we just spent our time trying to prevent. We want to feed the fruit, not the foliage. Pour the liquid fertilizer directly at the base of the plant, right into the root zone. This quick hit of liquid nutrition acts like an energy drink for the plant, helping it bounce back from the pruning shock and immediately start setting dozens of new blossoms on those upper branches. Feed them right, and they will reward you heavily. As with everything in life, there is a dark side to pruning, and that is going too far. Once gardeners see how well removing suckers works, they sometimes get addicted to clipping and end up butchering their plants. You must never remove more than 1/3 of the plant's total foliage at any one time. The leaves are the solar panels of the factory. If you strip off too many leaves, the plant cannot gather enough sunlight to perform photosynthesis, and it will literally starve to death, no matter how much fertilizer you give it. Your goal is to remove the useless lower suckers and manage the upper structure, not to strip the plant completely naked. If you have a plant that is severely overgrown, do not try to fix it all in one day. Prune a little bit this week, let the plant recover for 5 days, and then prune a little bit more next week. This gradual approach allows the plant to adapt to the changes without going into a state of shock. Always step back and look at the whole plant while you are working. If it looks like a skeleton, you have gone too far. Balance is the key to maintaining a healthy, vigorous eggplant that produces relentlessly. It is also very important to understand the difference between pruning a side shoot and pruning a primary leaf. We have talked entirely about removing suckers, those branches that grow out of the joints. But what about the giant, fan-like leaves attached directly to the main stem? Generally, you want to leave those primary leaves alone, especially the ones near the top of the plant. They are doing the heavy lifting of gathering sunlight. However, as the season progresses, the massive leaves near the very bottom of the main stem will start to turn yellow, get crispy, and touch the soil. These old, dying leaves are no longer contributing energy. They are just slowly dying and attracting pests. It is perfectly fine and highly recommended to snip off these old, yellowing bottom leaves. This further improves that crucial airflow we talked about earlier. Just be sure you are only removing the dead or dying foliage at the base, and never clipping healthy, dark green leaves from the upper canopy just for the sake of making it look tidy. Knowing the difference between a useless sucker, a dying bottom leaf, and a vital solar panel leaf is the true mark of a master gardener. So how exactly does this one simple snip keep the eggplants pouring in until autumn? It is all about endurance. An unpruned eggplant burns through its energy incredibly fast. It creates a massive burst of wild growth in midsummer, produces a handful of fruits, completely exhausts itself, and then basically gives up by late August. By strictly managing the energy through pruning, you are pacing the plant. You are turning it from a sprinter into a marathon runner. Because the plant is not wasting daily resources on 50 useless branches, it maintains a deep reserve of energy in its root system. As the late summer heat fades and the cooler days of early autumn approach, your pruned eggplant will still have plenty of gas left in the tank. It will continue to push out new flowers and swell new fruits long after your unpruned neighbours have pulled their dead plants out of the ground. This extended season is where the real numbers add up. While others are harvesting 5 or 6 fruits total, you are pulling in a dozen eggplants a week, week after week, watching the total climb toward that magical 100 mark as the autumn leaves begin to fall. Let me paint a picture of a real-world example so you can truly visualize the difference. Imagine 2 identical eggplant seedlings planted on the exact same day in the exact same soil. Plant A is left entirely alone to grow naturally. Plant B has its first flower pinched, its Y junction established, and every lower sucker cleanly removed. By mid-July, plant A looks huge. It is a massive, sprawling bush. But if you look inside, you only find 3 dull eggplants resting in the dirt, covered in bug bites. Plant B looks surprisingly skinny, tied neatly to its wooden stake. But hanging from its clean branches are 10 perfect, glistening purple fruits, with 20 more flowers blooming above them. When September rolls around, plant A is yellow, exhausted, and completely dead. Plant B, however, is still deep green, still firing on all cylinders and giving its owner a massive basket of fresh produce for autumn stews and roasting. This is not just a theoretical gardening tip, it is a proven biological mechanism. When you see the side-by-side comparison in your own garden, the visual proof is so overwhelming that you will never let an eggplant grow wild and unpruned ever again. There is one more massive advantage to this pruning technique that we have not discussed yet, and that is pest control. Flea beetles, spider mites, and aphids absolutely love eggplants. They are the sworn enemies of your autumn harvest. These tiny pests thrive in dense, protected environments where predators cannot reach them and the gardener cannot see them. An unpruned, bushy eggplant is basically a luxury hotel for these bugs. They hide on the undersides of the tangled leaves and suck the life out of the plant. But when you prune away the lower suckers and create that open, airy structure, you destroy their hiding spots. The sunlight penetrates the canopy, which many pests hate. Furthermore, because the plant is open and visible, you can easily spot an aphid outbreak on day 1 instead of day 20. If you need to spray organic neem oil or insecticidal soap, you can easily coat every single leaf because there is no dense jungle blocking your spray. By pruning, you are actively creating a hostile environment for pests, ensuring that your plant spends its energy making food for you instead of acting as a free buffet for the local insect population. As we head into the final stretch of the season, your weekly garden patrol is what guarantees success. You have done the hard work. You found the Y-split, you removed the suckers, you tied the stems, and you fed the soil. Now it is just about observation and gentle maintenance. Walk your garden with a cup of coffee in the morning. Inspect the clean stems. Flick off any new suckers that try to appear. Check the ties to make sure they are not choking the growing branches. Admire the deep, dark purple shine of the fruits developing in the sun. Gardening is not about fighting nature. It is about gently guiding it. By understanding the anatomy of your eggplant and having the courage to make that crucial first snip, you have unlocked the true genetic potential of the plant. You have transformed a messy, struggling bush into a highly efficient, fruit-producing machine. The feeling of walking out to your backyard in crisp autumn air and harvesting armfuls of flawless eggplants is incredibly rewarding. You now possess the knowledge to make it happen year after year. And there you have it, the ultimate pruning secret that will completely transform your harvest. By simply identifying that Y junction and ruthlessly snipping away those lower energy-stealing suckers, you are taking complete control of your garden. You are no longer hoping for a good harvest, you are immigration one. From improved airflow and disease resistance to painting your fruits with sunlight for that perfect glossy finish, this one technique changes everything. It is amazing how one small, counterintuitive cut can result in dozens, even up to 100 beautiful eggplants pouring out of your garden right up until the autumn frost. Thank you so much for spending your time with me in the garden today. If this video helped you understand your plants a little better, please make sure to subscribe to the channel for more game-changing garden secrets. Hit that like button to help the channel grow, and I want to hear from you down in the comments. Are you brave enough to pinch off that first flower this year, or does it still feel too scary? Let us chat about it below, and happy gardening!